Worry about nothing. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. And the peace of God, far beyond what we can understand, will guard our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Amen. I'm feeling again. I'm feeling it from the top of my head to my toes. I'm feeling a feeling deep down inside that no one knows. I'm feeling a sigh of relief, now I'm finally over one of my grief. These negative thoughts have drastically ceased, and I'm feeling again. The pain in my heart has suddenly turned into joy. That's something that all the money you have can avoid. It's something that I received, yes, it was surely a gift to me that my Lord and my Savior delivered for free, and I'm feeling again. I thought I was finished, didn't know where I stand, and though it took a minute, I can say with confidence, I'm feeling again. I'm feeling it when I wake up in the morning each day. I'm feeling it when I get down on my knees to pray. It's like I'm a brand new me, God's giving me vision that's 2020, and not just in hindsight but eternity, and I'm feeling again. I'm thankful to know that the storm doesn't last on my life. The rainbow comes after the rain and the peace after strife. It's something you have to believe, it ain't just a promise but a guarantee, so why don't you come take a walk with me, cause I'm feeling again. I no longer have to hold on to what's not even mine. Sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't, and it's fine. What's meant for you will be, and what's not will be taken away from thee. It's not rejection, it's protection, so keep that in mind. Not everything you want is what you need, and not everyone around wants to see you succeed. But don't take it personal, that's just them. Pray for them the best, God bless, and then get back on your grind. Protect your mind and take off at full speed. I'm feeling again. I'm feeling again. I'm feeling again. Feeling again. Feeling again. Feeling again. Ooh. Walk with me now.
Getting my stretches out here before we go. Oh, we're live. Coming to you from New Jersey and Exeter, Britain, which is in southwest England, kind of close to Cornwall. I'll let everybody out there decide who is in what location. We're going to keep that a mystery tonight. And what are you drinking tonight, Jenna?
Oh, coffee as usual.
Coffee as usual.
Anything else would be uncivilized.
I'm drinking what I guess they call it Americana here, and I'm not much of a coffee snoot. I like coffee out of a pot at a truck stop, served by a woman who calls me hun. And where that doesn't exist anywhere in Europe, it makes me. I mean, honestly, I love Europe. I'm not attacking any Europeans out there, but it makes me want to stop drinking coffee. It's a sad thought. And this show is JC. The C is for coffee, so we're in big trouble if I give it up.
This is true.
Yeah. Well,
have you tried any of the tea while you're out there, though?
Any what?
Tea. Come on.
We plan to do tea time. We plan to do plenty of
Excellent.
tea times. Definitely. And so it's been a few weeks since we've been together. It's nice to be back again. And
Yes.
I'm thinking now, of course, this is 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Mhm.
Eastern Seaboard, and then for those of you on the West Coast, it's like 1 p.m. lunch break time. So, yeah, but honestly, like I'm not really interested in doing these at 2 a.m. So we're we're doing them earlier, and I'm thinking over the next 6 or 7 months, as I go to all these different locations, that I'm going to be like Kato in the Pink Panther films. And for those of you who know the reference, Inspector Clouseau goes into his house and Kato's there to keep him on his toes, and he opens his fridge and he jumps out and strangles him. I think that's what's going to be what the YouTube lives are going to be like. I want to keep you guys in tip-top shape and on your toes. You never know when I'm going to drop a video. So it could be at any time
Right.
whatsoever. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Trump, time travel, Nikola Tesla, the last pope, the new pope, Back to the Future. I'm missing tons of things. We're gonna be talking about a lot of different things.
Tomorrowland.
Tomorrowland, Looking Glass, and tying all together. Now, I want to say from the beginning that I've been talking to you about this, Jenna, that I actually like the idea of presenting on things that I'm not necessarily sold on, because I love conspiracy theory. I love it. And this is one of those things where I am convinced that there is some sort of manipulation going on to time. For those of you who've read my Back to the Future paper, and I've given different talks on it, I really do believe the title is legitimate there. I really do believe that Back to the Future is an actual time travel movie. But when we're dealing with the Trumps, it's one of those things I tried to give it the best fair shake that I could, and kind of look at what people are saying and put it in there. And it's one of those things that, I'll let you guys decide. And hopefully if you come to the conclusion that Trump is not a time traveler, it's okay. It's okay. Like we just, we're here for entertainment purposes, right? Wink, wink. So, and Jenna, I'm really impressed that, hold on, I need to get this back up. I'm really impressed. There it is. The Wizard of Trump, the time traveling president, that you actually read this and Tomorrowland. So
Yeah, of course. I gotta be prepared.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that went above and beyond what I was actually expecting, just Um, if
And
we do
also,
get
by
to
the way, you're an excellent writer. I love that you just keep me interested into the next topic. Usually all I read is the Bible. So it's nice to read something else that I'm also interested in. I even called my brother because he's obsessed with time travel. And I told him to come and watch this, but I think he's still working, so he'll catch it later.
Yeah, thank you. If we get to Tomorrowland tonight, I might talk about it's my latest one that I wrote while we were on the 2-week boat trip across the pond, and I didn't realize, I was not anticipating how seasick I would be. I was sick and mostly miserable the entire trip, and yeah, so hopefully, like, it's not gonna emerge memories going through it tonight. I'll be like, like, like as I'm like going through it, but it was very unpleasant. That being said, let's get right into this. So the Trump connection,
Do it.
the Tesla Trump connection, I'm not gonna get this, we'll just kind of talk through it. And anything, Jenna, that stands out to you, any observations, questions, whatever, feel free to jump in. So obviously, some of the things I started looking at was the Back to the Future movie, and the particularly the alternate paradox timeline in the second one, where the Donald Trump as president storyline. And I also wrote a paper on Through the Looking Glass and the singularity they found there, and this idea that that actually really helped me a lot too, going through the Mandela effect and looking at all these ideas of these parallel realities around us and how they're all kind of converging together. When the Mandela effect broke out 10 years ago, it was 2015
How
when it
long?
really,
Wow.
it's kind of weird now because an entire generation is now growing up with these changes.
Yeah.
And the rest of us who were there to see the changes happen in real time, and I would actually literally see the changes happen. It wasn't like it was just somebody giving me some sort of changing my opinion on something based on false memories. I would literally see the changes happening, go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's been 10 years, and we've all kind of settled into it at this point. But at first, when it was happening, it was it was a very kind of dark feeling, right? It was just this very kind of like sinister, evil feeling. Seeing these realities change. As time has gone on, I've in a way I've started to appreciate at least what is happening. I don't know if it's being manipulated by men or something else is happening, but I really think that we are seeing this leading towards a singularity event. And the way I like to describe this is if you have a river, it starts out as a like a brook or whatever, a creek, and then it becomes bigger and bigger as it's going down the mountain, but you have all these different rivers dumping into it. And that's like what we're seeing, where we're having all these realities come together, leading towards this one event that, according to Project Looking Glass, the elites of the world are really dreading. They're not looking forward to this event. And there's nothing.
I gotta read that one. I have not read that paper yet.
The idea is that it ties into like scrying mirrors. Prester John said he had one. You see it like in Snow White and Seven Dwarfs with the Wicked Queen, and the irony there is that she had this mirror that could give her information on the world in the future, but she was a narcissist. She could never get past her own image,
reflection,
right?
Right.
Own undoing. But yeah, so the idea is that throughout history, these different governments of the world, maybe it was Rome, Persia, Babylon, Egypt, they had these scrying mirrors where they could use it to their advantage to manipulate the events in time to lead to them being a world power. But what
only
happens
forward
is
in time, though? Only forward?
What was that?
Or is it only
I don't
forward
know.
in time? Oh, you don't know. Okay.
I don't know. So
Okay.
well, I can comment on that really quickly, but the idea is that all throughout history we have these singularity events, and these are like security checkpoints that Yah puts in place. Like, so when we talk about like the shape of the earth, right? We have Antarctica. That's something that he put there that we can't get past. He's got the firmament. He's got, you can only dig so deep in the ground, so deep in the ocean, this kind of stuff. And he's got these checkpoints along the way. He's like, I'm just going to reset everything. And Rome could do nothing about it. Egypt, so on and so forth. Now what some of the whistleblowers have stated with Looking Glass is that maybe it was actually what was his name? John, the time traveler John. Man, I can't think of it right now. I'll get to it. I'll remember. But the idea with some of the whistleblowers is what they're saying is that John Teeter, is that you can only go so far back in time. If it is possible indeed for humans to time travel, I don't know. But if they can, even if you could, the way I see it is that if one of the ideas with CERN and Looking Glass is that at some point in the future, which may now be our past, believe it or not, but at some point in the future, they were able to send back maybe electronically or something information, say to the 60s or the 70s, when they actually had the computers that they had built during the Second World War that could advance society. So in the 1970s, you see this huge explosion of technology going forward, which would have come from the future, right? But what they say is that, what these whistleblowers say is that you can only go so far back into the past, like 40, 50 years, not more than 100, but I think it's only like a few decades. And that's it. Like, there's just this padding, you can't go past that. And those would be
crazy up because what if they went back too far?
Right. So it's kind of like the firmament idea within time itself, that he puts these barriers like, okay, fine, you're going to manipulate this so much space, but you can't go back. You can't go back to the Middle Ages. You can't go back to the trial of Messiah, right, in 30 AD,
right,
and get a different outcome, those kind of things. Remember, I think it was Johnny Cochran said that he could go back and, he could save Messiah from perishing, right? So those kind of things. All right. So let's talk about Nikola Tesla. And this was something that in our own group, John Q dropped this. And I thought this was really fascinating. This comes from Truth Social, I believe. And Trump says the best definition of intelligence is the ability to predict the future. So that, of course, he puts out all these kind of coded things that seems to kind of tie into all this kind of research. So it was in January 9th, 1943. Excuse me while I do that. January 9th, 1943, 2 days after Nikola Tesla died in a New York City hotel, and he was, of course, pretty much penniless, broke by this point. He had been dumped by all his financiers based on the stuff he was developing. It was a naughty no-no. The FBI called John G. Trump. This would be Trump's uncle, and this is where he gets the J in his name, Donald J. Trump. So John G. Trump, to determine if the belongings of Tesla's estate were deemed dangerous. And so let's see. And I'll get back into that again. But the long story short is that he came out and said that there was, well, I'll get to that. We'll get to that. All right, Tesla. He was born in 1856 in Austria. He came to the U.S. in 1884, became a citizen in 91. That's the same year, by the way, he happened to invent the Tesla coil. He was a futurist. Now, what a futurist is, somebody who tries to, they want to be able to manipulate the future, right, and get their kind of outcome. And other famous futurists were like, Walt Disney was a futurist, H.G. Wells, things like that. And
you know what I thought when I saw that, right?
What?
You know, the first thing I thought when I saw futurist, I was like, oh, he thinks the tribulation is going to happen sometimes in the future. So it's like, wait, that's definitely not what he means.
No. And
I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah. And so that's the thing about this futurism, right? That eventually they discovered somewhere along the way that there was an outcome that they didn't like, that there was really nothing they could do about it. And this is why they're building the bunkers down into the earth, because they foresee that there is a cataclysmic event that they can't turn around, which goes into Tomorrowland, by the way, too. So anyways, he was employed by 3 big names everybody will recognize. Thomas Edison. Some people might not know Westinghouse, a little bit, under the radar, but J.P. Morgan as well. So some of his inventions include, but are not limited to, wireless lighting, aka the Tesla coil, X-rays, radio remote control. Like the remote control stuff we have to this day came from Tesla. Mechanical oscillators and generators and electrical discharge tubes. After working for Edison in the New York Library, Tesla joined Westinghouse at the 1893 Chicago World Fair. And I have a paper on that. Was the Chicago World Fair a hoax? Was it an older city that they hold? I think it was millions of people in front of. It's been a few years since I looked at that, but millions of people in horse and buggy days, where they had to literally work a farm, and it was very costly to jump on a train and just, move across the country to see this World Fair. And then they, of course, burned it down in front of everyone. And they also introduced the first serial killer, interestingly enough, at this World Fair, who is super royal. He's related to all the royals, but that's a side point.
Wait, quick question.
Yeah.
Were there always fires at the World Fair? Weren't there always fires?
Mm-mm. No,
they weren't
the one in Buffalo, New York, they actually assassinated a president at that one. Yeah.
How thoughtful.
Yeah, lovely. But they would often, but not always. Some of them went smoothly, but they would introduce psychodramatic elements at it. And of course, the Paris exposition, I think it was called, or whatever, the World Fair there comes into this as well. But the question I think everybody has is, was Tesla rediscovering this stuff? Was he true? I think he had to have been brilliant. Like, even if he was an actor, he was still brilliant. He wasn't a dumb guy. Was he just reintroducing stuff that was known 100 years earlier? I mean, this goes into Tartarian MK Tech, the free energy. I mean, he was developing Wi-Fi capabilities back in the 1800s, which the government shut down, and they didn't reintroduce till Al Gore invented it. So was he reintroduced? Was he chosen to reintroduce it, or was he rediscovering? And that's obviously what I can't answer. And there could be other outcomes as well, right? But there's more than one way to look at a problem. And so Tesla was working towards something which we would like to call free energy. And obviously to Edison, that was a big naughty no-no. He developed this tower in Long Island, New York around 1901. And it was JP Morgan who decided to stop financing him and shut it down, because obviously we can't have that. And it seems that he and Edison did not get along either. So in 1895, Nikola Tesla became obsessed with the theory of time travel. When I say obsessed, and I want to come at this with, I'm trying to look at the conspiracy theory as it's being presented on different boards and, Reddit and different places like that, kind of digging stuff up. But I also kind of want to be honest about this, because it's being passed around. The story in 1895. Let me just give the story real quickly. 1895, a New York Herald reporter is said, right? There's no quote on this that I can find. If this quote exists, I have not found it. And I have searched and searched and searched, nor can I find anybody else who has seen the quote. But they just keep quoting it on the internet as though it must be real because it's quoted so often. But anyways, a New York Herald reporter is said to have come across Tesla in a small cafe in New York City, looking visibly shaken. And when questioned, Tesla told the reporter that he had an out of time, quote unquote, out of time, near death experience by which he could see into the future and the past, potentially other possibilities and dimensions as well, though he was nearly electrocuted by 3 million volts in the process. Cool story. And that, like I said, the only problem is I can't verify this. What we do have is pictures, insane pictures of Tesla, like sitting there just reading a book while this voltage is just going off. So clearly there could be, at least the basis of the story, there's some validity to it. Did he discover? Go ahead.
So what if it's like how in Enoch it says that the sun and the moon goes through portals, right? They have their circuits for however many weeks, 6 to 14 weeks, something like that, and then they go into a portal and then they come out somewhere else. And my brother keeps talking about this TV show or movie, I don't remember. Give me a second. Highlander, is that it?
Yeah, there can only be one. Yeah.
He says it all the time, and I've never seen it. Is it a movie or a TV show?
It started out as a movie. The first movie is considered one of the better sci-fi fantasy movies of all time, and every sequel has been horrific and worse. The TV show I remember watching in the 90s, and I enjoyed it. I can't, clarify the quality now, like 30 years later, but yeah.
Oh, okay, so was that about like someone going into different times and dimensions through like a portal?
No, there was these I can't remember how many there were, but at some time in the Middle Ages, which is actually a pretty cool story. I should actually revisit this. It's kind of based on these ideas that there were these immortals that have traversed history. That there were people who were at the crucifixion of Christ, and they lived hundreds and hundreds of years later. But according to this Highlander, there were these, obviously it's referring to the Scottish Highlanders. There was a certain amount of them that they were immortal, but the only way to kill them is to chop off their head. And there's this, like, the end, they're all basically going around the world trying to kill each other, chop off each other's heads, because there can only be one in the end. And they're all trying to, vie to be that. And so, yeah. So that's the whole Highlander storyline, pretty much.
And would you say that they were in different time periods at different times?
No, I don't remember that. Maybe in the future movies or some of the TV show episodes they covered that, but I don't remember that. I just remember the premise of the first one. It took place in like 1980s. I think it was New York City. Had Sean Connery in it. And yeah, they were like.
No wonder my brother loved it. He loves Sean Connery.
Yeah. Oh, I love Sean. I mean,
too.
What dry on a side note, what I find obsessive about Sean Connery is that when he starts a sentence, he starts on one side of his mouth, and by the time he ends the sentence, it's on the opposite end of his mouth. And I just watch this. I'm like, how do you do that? I can't do that. This is why I'll never be
Connery. That's why.
Yeah, this is why I'll never be James Bond. Even if I try, I could never do Sean Connery. And I know that people watching this are like, what kind of show is this? But the other one is Lauren Bacall, who was Humphrey Bogart's husband. Humphrey Bogart, by the way, was super royal, like really, really, really royal. Looking at his genealogy. But anyways, Lauren Bacall I wrote a novel last fall, which still has not been published yet. I don't know if it'll see the light of day anytime soon. Still working on it, but I watched a lot of Humphrey Bogart movies to prepare for writing it. And Lauren Bacall was his wife, real life wife, so she was in a lot of these movies, and she would like flare her nostrils on screen. And I couldn't understand, like there would be these close-ups. They would go up to her nose and she just starts flaring her nostrils. And I'm watching this obsessively, like, why are you doing this? On the big screen too. But anyways, yeah. So moving on. You have any good questions on Highlander? We need to bring on, I guess, a guest who can answer all that, because I can't answer.
My brother probably. He loves all these things. All right, I thought that show was about something with portals. So when you said, okay, let's get back to, because that was just like an ADHD rabbit trail for me.
Again, there might be people listening to this going, yeah, in the episode, season 2, episode 12, there was these portals.
Right.
I don't really know.
But you had said something that he said that he had an out of time experience. Right. Okay. So that's what made me think, like, maybe he could have, because you said that picture up there, the second picture, the one on the right, is him in his supposed time machine, correct?
That I don't think that was his time machine per se. It might be, but it was, right. If he built a time machine. So here's the thing. So this theory, there's a lot riding on this quote from the New York Herald reporter that cannot be verified. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So a lot of this theory that Tesla was a time traveler, all of a sudden, then I think this is the same year that was it H.G. Wells built the time machine, things like that. So you see all these, things kind of happening amongst these elites. And, did time travel happen back then? I was there. I don't know. There's a lot riding on the theory based on this. So just want to throw that out there. So, people, everyone listening, you guys can, take this for what it is. I'm trying the best I can here to dig into this. Also, this connects. I've never written a paper on the Philadelphia experiment. I would like to someday. I've got a stack of 200 things I need to cover. These take me a long time to write and research each one of them. But yeah, the Philadelphia experiment supposedly ties into Tesla too, according to a lot of theories. That was the ship that completely vanished. And there's thoughts that that was a government experiment, using Tesla technology. So anyways, so we see here, I'm showing a picture right here on the left. Now on the right, that's John G. Trump. That would be Donald Trump's uncle. Right. On the left there, that really old guy there is Tesla as an old man at the end of his life. But the reason I show this picture right there, he's meeting with King Peter II of Yugoslavia, but that's his nephew right there on his left holding his arm. His name is Sava Kosanovic. And what was important about this? So on the morning after Tesla's death on January 8th, 1943, Sava Kosanovic arrived at his uncle's apartment only to find it ransacked. Now, this is even before John G. Trump was ever asked to look at anything. And his paperwork was missing, including a black notebook that was several hundred pages long that Kosanovic was intimately familiar with. He was looking everywhere for it. It had some really good information in it that was gone. He distinctly recalled that some of its pages were marked government, as if that's not suspect. Right. And perhaps it wasn't the best idea for Tesla to go around claiming he had perfected his death ray. And is this where I asked the question, is this where direct energy weapons are responsible for like the Paradise and Malibu fires? Some people say the California fires last year were direct energy too. I didn't dig into that as much. I wasn't seeing convincing evidence, but maybe I was looking at the wrong stuff. Nevertheless, did those originate with Tesla? Right. You wanted to say something.
Me?
No. Okay, maybe not. Okay. All right. No. So
I'll put my hand up like this when I want to say something. Like, wait.
Okay. All right. I'll have to look for those signals with your hand because I'm looking at my paper. Okay. So anyways, so then on the following day, on January 9th, is this the following day? Yeah. Following day, January 9th, 1943, the U.S. Office of Alien Property Custodian seizes all of Tesla's remaining work. We're talking 2 truckloads of paperwork and artifacts, in addition to almost 30 barrels and bundles that had been nabbed from storage. Now, keep in mind that Tesla was a U.S. citizen. So why the U.S. Office of Alien Property Custodian is showing up is kind of suspect. Now, jumping over to John G. Trump, he had already been a professor at MIT when the alien property custodians called him on the telephone. He was also an electrical engineer developing radar systems with the National Defense Research Committee of the Office of Scientific Research and Development. He was appointed director of the High Voltage Research Laboratory at MIT. And after a 3-day investigation, Trump reported that none of Tesla's confiscated materials had, quote, significant value to this country, unquote, nor would they, quote, constitute a hazard in unfriendly hands, unquote.
Oh, yeah, okay.
His conclusion painted Tesla's late career project as speculative, philosophical, and primarily promotional, and that his wireless transmissions did not include new sound workable principles or methods. So basically the whole thing comes across like a smokescreen. Like, like Trump he's basically trying to make it out like he's actually seeing some really important work here. And he's like, yeah, sorry guys, there's nothing here. And he apparently confiscates this himself. He takes a lot of this stuff. And this is where it is tied into the Trumps now coming in and having a connection with Tesla, though it does go back to the 1890s. Again, I'll get there in a little bit. This is kind of interesting here. There's probably all sorts of connections to Tesla with Trump. Tesla himself, because he was he rode solo his whole life. He apparently never chose a woman. He fell in love with this
bird.
Yeah, he fell in love with this pigeon. The pigeon fell in love with him later in life. And this is a quote from him. He said, "I love that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me. As long as I had her, there was purpose to my life." And so this pigeon would come to his NYC window every single day. He would feed it. He would talk to it. They would converse together. Now, to be clear, this photo here can be a little bit manipulative on the left because I have never seen an actual photo of Tesla with a New York City pigeon. And they do this to kind of make it out kind of like Trump here in Manhattan Inc. And so there's a potential connection there that Trump is relating back to the Tesla. And that, the thing about Trump that is undeniable, however people feel about Trump, whether this guy is taking out the bad guys or he is one of them, right? However people feel about Trump, there's no denying that this guy is super cryptic and he's putting clues out there left and right in like his tweets or true social media that he's on now or whatever, right? And it goes all the way back to the 80s. This guy was super cryptic. So there's kind of interesting there. And this would be the November 1985 issue of Manhattan Inc. John G. Trump, his uncle, died on 2/21/85, which happened to be the year the Back to the Future was released. And as I pointed out before, maybe we'll have time to go through it really quickly tonight, but Back to the Future 2 seems to be, I will actually be covering this with the Pope. I'll get back into this with the Pope, but the idea that we went into a parallel, the elite basically like going into the singularity thing, that they wanted one outcome, but they went into this parallel timeline to them as a nightmare scenario. This is Marty going back to alternate 1985 and it just the dumps and Biff owns the police and his dad's murdered. It's just a terrible time. This is like how the elites view what Trump is doing to them. He's murdering them. He's taking out their, society, that kind of stuff. All right. So another one of the clues with Trump is in his Mar-a-Lago home. And on January 18th, 2017, so he was just inaugurated as president then, because he was voted in November of 2016. He would have just been inaugurated. And you see him here when you zoom in on the tile behind him, you see two pillars. You see the two pillars of Freemasonry there and the words plus ultra. So this is where we have a Tomorrowland connection. And plus ultra is a Latin phrase, which means further beyond, and is a national motto of Spain. So according to official history, Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor and King of Spain, adopted the motto following the discovery of the New World by Columbus. I know. And it's a complete 180 reversal of the original Latin phrase non plus ultra, which apparently, well, it meant nothing further beyond. And it apparently was inscribed as a warning on the Pillars of Hercules at the Strait of Gibraltar, meaning there's like, don't go out. There's nothing out there. So you guys can all debate out there whether that originally was on the Strait of Gibraltar or not. But that's what it is. It's basically supposed to be like, okay, before Columbus, official history, before Columbus, nobody knew about the New World, but now that we do know, we've got plus ultra. Now, when I get into my Tomorrowland paper, if there's time for it tonight, I'm going to show that I was actually really taken back because I had never seen Tomorrowland before, and so I'm researching this, and I see all these Trump time travel conspiracies tying into the movie, and they say the movie's about time travel. I'm like, okay, so I'll go watch it. And to my astonishment, the movie's not about time travel. I don't know what pipe people were smoking when they were watching. At least maybe, I don't know, maybe it is, and I totally missed it. But it is super profound movie that actually goes I think people maybe didn't have a frame of reference, but it goes precisely into my research of the hidden wilderness, the blessed realm, the greater landmass out there where the saints go. And so they tie in plus ultra to that further beyond.
Right.
And you see the ultimate theme of Tomorrowland. It's a Gnostic tale where they want to conquer New Jerusalem, Nimrod style. So let's see. So that came out in 2015, which, excuse me, I got a little sniffle there. That came out in the year 2015, which, go ahead. There's the finger. Okay. There's the finger. It went up.
The finger.
I saw it.
Okay. So as I think about these things, right, the wheels are spinning and everything, especially with time travel, do you think that it's actually time travel? Like, do you believe that Trump actually went back into time? Or do you think that maybe there is a continuation of certain people, certain lines of people, and they're just all in on the same plan? Like, what do you really think?
Yeah, so I can't obviously answer the question if it is possible for a physical mortal body to time travel. And in fact, I would say that I'm of the opinion that Satan being cast out of heaven, part of his punishment is that he's actually trapped in time. With kind of like the abyss too, right? There's a literal 1,000 years of measurement that he was in the abyss, right? He was not outside time, he was in time. I think he's still within time. I don't think he can escape time. So here's some of the things I've kind of toyed around with. One is that, and you see this plot line in the Matrix movies, where when you get to the end of the trilogy, you learn that, I can't remember how often it is, like it could have been 33 years. I don't know, but it's like every 30 years or something like that. That they basically hit the reboot button and they go back to like 1970 something or something, which is, it's been a while since I've seen the Matrix movies, but I remember that he finds out that they're just doing these cycle loops over and over and over again. And so I almost think that maybe in this little season, if Satan knows that he's limited to time, and then he's coming up to the end, and he's going to be thrown into the lake of fire, and that's it. Like, there's no coming out of that. It's over for him. I could see a scenario where he is desperately trying to figure out, how can I keep repeating this over and over and over again, right? Just go through a cycle and he could extend his time. Whether or not he's able to do that, I can't answer that question. But I feel like I have seen evidence. Here, let me just jump to my Back to the Future paper real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Where is it?
I have so much in here that talks about time travel, but this right here, where I just go through some of the 9/11 predictive programming. One of the things I need to add to this is the 923 predictive programming. There's just as much 923 predictive programming as there is 9/11 predictive programming. And one of the big questions that we're asking is, has 923 come to fruition yet? Some people will point out, well, the Revelation 12 sign happened September 23rd. I don't really know. But 9/11, so the oldest reference I can find to 9/11 is early 70s, right when the World Trade Center came to be. But by the time you get into the 80s, it just goes hyperactive. And we were raised, just the cartoons we were watching and everything, just seeing 9/11 predictive programming over and over and over again. And I just give a few examples here. I can give pages of this. It's
Right.
overwhelming. And so the idea is that I put forward, and that was one of the points in Back to the Future 2. There's actually a lot here. Like you see right here, you see 9/11 when he goes back to the future the first time. You can see it right there with the 9 on the side with the 2 tire tracks making 11. And then, of course, what else do they show here? I think they had 2 pillars here too. But here you see it plainly in the second movie where they actually show the Twin Towers falling. And then the father, George McFly, is upside down like the falling man, the famous falling man, the hangman from the tarot card that they played on 9/11. But my point is that there was such a precise knowledge of 9/11 decades in advance, precise down to the very day, how it would happen. I can't help but think that 9/11 happened before I was born, because I was born in 1980.
I saw you wrote that.
Yeah. I can't help but think that it happened before I was born. And I don't know. I feel like they are manipulating time somehow. Maybe it's through CERN or something. But they're able to pass information maybe back to the past. And that's how they knew that they were going to, this alternate timeline, that it was going to happen where it would be a nightmare situation for the elite. And that's where, again, with Trump, like I've reserved my opinion on whether he's a good guy or not. I don't know. As I tell everybody,
Right.
I'm going to have to watch, just watch this unfold and see what happens. And I see multiple different possible scenarios, but I am of the opinion now that he is not one of the elite. Like he would be kind of like, if there's like, the reptilian kind of group, the blue blood, kind of black magic group, he would be maybe like the White Wizard, right? That is taking them out, that kind of thing. I think he really is taking a wrecking ball to their
Gandalf.
society. Yeah. So whether or not he turns out to be a good guy or not, I'm reserving. I'll just have to see what happens on the other end. I'm not frantic about it. I'm not worried about it.
Right.
I'm going to continue living my life for Yah, whatever happens. But I want to see how this plays out. Let me get back to this here. So, go ahead.
Go ahead. All right. So you said that you think that like the Twin Towers happened before you were born because they had everything planned out perfectly. But what if that's just it? What if they just have everything planned out perfectly before it happens because that's part of their plan? Same thing like how Yah had a plan and has a plan. And what does it say in Revelation? It says that Yeshua is the lamb slain before the foundation of the world. Now, we know he wasn't slain before the foundation physically, but in plan he was. So what if it's like that same type of timeline where they just know this before it's going to happen because they're planning it?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways you could look at a problem, right? So,
Right.
Yeah, like I said, it's I've seen so much where they've been pushing our entire lives, some of the things that are becoming reality now. And again, yeah, it could all be, a chimpanzee in the back room,
Predictive
right?
programming.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that's, just like I said. So where I'm at personally is that I think it is completely possible to send some sort of information back to each other through some sort of portal, or through time. I'm just not sure myself if a more flesh and skin person can actually make that journey. If you understand what I'm saying, right?
Oh, so you're saying not the actual person, but information.
Yeah. So if they needed
Ah,
they needed supercomputers, this is what 1800s. Okay, fine. Maybe they did. But just going according to what we are told, I know, but it just seems like something happened in maybe like the 1970s. There seems to be a big emphasis on the 1970s. And so this idea that some point in the future, which could be our past, maybe it was 2015, right? But at some point in the future, maybe it was 2030, I don't really know, they were able to send electronic information, and maybe some guy sitting at his desk, and they're just, something's being fed into his computer. He's like, what in the world is this, right? Something like that. But they were able to push technology forward from the future into the past. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't flesh and blood people necessarily going back. It could have just been something as simple as that. And that's just me thinking out loud. It's been something I've been putting forward. It seems to make a lot of sense to me. But like I said, this paper specifically deals with the potential that Trump himself, or the Trumps, the family, and his connections, Nikola Tesla and others, are literal time travelers, and we'll show some of those hints. So in the movie Tomorrowland, there's this group of people called Plus Ultra. So we need to go back to this point quickly. You can look at this here. Tiles. Trump is with Plus Ultra, right? So according to Tomorrow, and this came out like a year and a half. So Tomorrowland came out in 2015. This is January 2017. Plus Ultra is a group of futurists who were at the Exposition Universal that would be in Paris, the Paris World Fair in 1889, where the Eiffel Tower was premiered. And Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, Jules Verne, and Gustave Eiffel all got together, and they created this alternate society, Tomorrowland, by which they would push their futurist ideas and their technology, but they would hide it from society. But from this platform, from Tomorrowland, they would motivate humanity to push in a positive direction. Basically, they realized that the elite who are running the earth were, bad guys, and they would ensure that technology would not get pushed forward. So I think that there's a lot of truth to this, by the way. I really do. But obviously, this is coming from the Disney perspective, where they're taking guys like Jules Verne and Gustave Eiffel, who, gave us the Statue of Liberty of all guys. He was a
Satan.
Yeah. The tranny Satan.
Yes.
And of course, Jules Verne is a Freemason, Rastafari. I'm sorry, not Rastafarian. Yaman. No, he was a Rosicrucian. He might have been a Rastafarian too. I'm not really sure. Like a closeted Rastafari. You never really know. I need to say this before I forget. My
Outlander. The show was Outlander, not Highlander. Someone
okay, we were talking about the wrong show. Okay, yeah, okay.
Thank you, seeking confirmation. Outlander. Woo-hoo.
Yeah. So it's lo and behold mentioned in the comments, John Teeter. I'm sorry to say that that's the one thing I didn't get to yet in this paper. I'll eventually do an update. For the longest time, I'm like, I'm not really seeing a John Teeter connection. But when I was looking into it, I'm like, yeah, okay, I see what they're talking about. That Trump, one of the theories is that Trump is John Teeter. So John Teeter, he was around back in the Art Bell radio days, AM radio, late night, and kind of like 2000-ish around then. And he was, I'm going to get some of the dates wrong, but he claimed to come from the year, was it 2030? He came from the future through CERN, and he came back to save humanity or whatever. And some people have made Trump connections there. It's kind of interesting. But anyways, so getting back to Plus Ultra, we're never going to get through this, are we? We're having fun though.
Yes, indeed.
We're having fun. Even if we don't get through all this, that's fine. So let's see. Walt Disney apparently was, one of these Tomorrowland, honorary residents and stuff, and they tied in. We'll have to cover the Tomorrowland movie going at some other time. Okay, so let's jump on to the next connection now. The Sonora Aero Club and Trump. I was actually interested in this because I've been to Sonora many times. It's this just little tiny western town in the Sierras. It was where they filmed the Young Guns movies back in the 80s. And so the very first person to apparently ride the Trump train, quite literally, was a man named Charles Deschaux. And you can maybe see it right here. It's kind of small on screen, but you see a train here. It's all gold because Trump loves gold. It says Trump on it. The man up here oiling it looks amazingly like Trump. And then Barron can be seen in here in the window right here, kind of looking.
Yeah.
So yeah, directly under the T there for Trump, you can see him. So his earliest, so this guy, this artist, this mystery artist that kind of just showed up on the scene, his earliest known work is a diary dated to 1899. And it's the last is an 80-page book dated to his last diary is 80 pages, 1921 to 1922 era. Now, the thing is that up until the 1960s, nobody knew who this guy was. He was a complete unknown. This is the kind of stuff I like, where all of a sudden, like, there's these points in history where all of a sudden this new information just arrives. I could go off on different tangents on that. I'll try to hold back. We are told of a Houston, he lived in Houston, Texas. We're told of a house fire. Apparently he was never in Sonora, California, even though his diaries all attest to the fact he was. And there were 12 notebooks of artwork, which were then placed on the sidewalk to be discarded. This is the story that we're told in, what year is this? Like 1968 or something like that. This guy, Fred Washington, he's a local antiques and used furniture dealer. He spots the books on the sidewalk. And for $100, he buys them from the garbage man. So the garbage man is literally, I guess the story is the garbage man is collecting them. This arts, maybe he's a dumpster diver or whatever. He's like, hey, I want those books. And the garbage man's like, no, these are mine. You know, like I found that this is my property, and $100 for those books in the 60s. That's a pretty sweet deal. That garbage man had a very good weekend, I think. So in 1968, they then Mary Jane Victor, an art student at the University of St. Thomas in Houston, she stumbles upon these notebooks, and from there they go on to become like house and art studios and museums. And in one page dated to 1919, it finally sold at Christie's for $22,500 in 2016. Now, I might remind everybody that the CIA does run the art world.
Mm-hmm.
I have a paper on that there, the CIA and ART. And it's come out now. I mean, that's not even a conspiracy anymore. They've admitted to this. So what they would do is particularly with a lot of, really with just the modernist art from like the 50s going on forward, probably going back to Picasso. But we know, obviously, really nothing has changed, I guess, because back in the day would be, according to official history, the Catholic Church that would sponsor people, right? Makes sense. And the royals, that kind of stuff. But then now it made it look like all these artists are kind of these folk artists, and they're just kind of taking off and they're super successful. It's like, no, actually they were working with the CIA, and the CIA would funnel money through this artwork, and they would actually jack up the price where, when people are asking questions, how are these things selling for millions of dollars? It's because the CIA does that. They actually will pump money into this artwork to amp up the cost. So just to point that out there. Now, some people speculate that Charles Deschaux is a part of this time travel family. And the scenario before us is one in which, let's see, he was born in 1830. He immigrated from Prussia to Texas in 1850, fought for the Confederacy. He worked as a butcher. He died in 1923. He was married to a widow who already had a daughter. Maybe that's all unnecessary. He had, let's see, they had 3 children, 2 daughters, Bertha, Mary, and a son, Edward. Okay. In 1865, Deschaux signed the Civil War amnesty oath, indicating that he was a soldier for the Confederacy. And this is an important one because in it, he is described as having fair complexion. He's 5'3" with auburn hair and hazel eyes. So that's the best description we get of him in this document. But then he lived in Houston until his death. So we are never given information where he was out in Sonora. The bizarre thing about these journals, these diaries that are all filled with artwork, and I'll show a few examples. I already showed one, is that they're all giving this. He did this over years, wrote these all under this elaborate story that he was living in the 1800s in Sonora as part of the Sonora Aero Club with these mystery men who were plotting out like kind of like air travel, antiquitech type stuff. So some of the members include Peter Menace, Tosh Wilson, Lewis Carroll, and Jacob Misher. none of these people can be substantiated. So did he invent mystery people, or were these people that, went by fake names, or that obviously did not die in that time? They literally were time travelers and they went to a different time. So here's some more clues in his journals here. Let's see. It's been a while since I did this, so let me see. He's designing anti-gravity devices, and you can see Trump is scribbled all over his class notes. In fact, the flying ship on the right is quite literally called an Aero Trump. And on closer inspection, it is a man named Homer Trump. And who is he? So I don't know. Perhaps there's I don't know. Hopefully it's not a Simpsons connection. I don't really know. So this is where Jenna, you and I were going back on this this last week, and hopefully I cleared up all the confusion on this, because Trump has a father named Frederick, but he also has a grandfather named Frederick. So going back to his grandfather, Frederick Trump, the question is, was Frederick Trump in the in this Sonora Aero Club? Again, loose connections here, loose connections.
Right.
There's nothing we can substantiate, but there's a lot of people who suspect that he was a member of this. The idea is that, that there's something almost like cyclical going on with the Trumps. So do I need to go through all his history? I don't think I do. He arrived in New York.
No. So there's no history on this Homer Trump?
No, not to my understanding. No, he seems to be another one of the mystery people. So everybody associated with the Sonora Aero Club. Okay, so how maybe this isn't the best example, but like in the first century, the most common names are like Jacob, which would be James, Miriam, which would be Mary, Yeshua was a very, very common name, and as is Joseph, right? So the archaeologists will tell you that all around Judea in the first century, they're finding tombs everywhere of Joseph, Miriam, Jacob, Yeshua, right? Just very, very common to find those kind of names. And they'll tell you that these guys that they found, there's been a lot of people digging into the identities of these people. Lewis Carroll, Jacob Misher, Tosh Wilson. I think that Homer Trump is a wash, I think. And they'll say that they maybe found some graves that like maybe are them. They're not really sure, but yeah, they've never been identified. All the people apparently in this club, to my understanding from the research I pulled from this, they've never been identified. So they're all either inventions in his imagination, that he devoted a lot of time to this to make these elaborate diaries, that he never, they never went public for like 50 years after his death. So he wasn't trying to make a name for himself. He wasn't trying to be showy. That's kind of one of the things that kind of hits home with people. What I do want to talk about with Frederick Trump and Trump's like official, his historian, his biographers, and some of the Trump books that have come out, they have been astonished at this Frederick Trump individual, because he comes to America. Apparently he fled the draft. He comes to America, and oh, by the way, because he fled the draft, he went back to his homeland country and they kicked him out some years later.
Right.
But he came over with like no money. He's working as a barber, which there's not a lot of money to be made as a barber. It's good, honest work, but not a lot of money to be made in it. I don't know how many heads you would have to cut and what kind of hairstyles you would have to convince men of to make all this money. But he always gets like, he's somehow tied in with Rockefeller, and Rockefeller's making investments, and he has a heads up on when he's making it, and when Rockefeller pulls out, Trump pulls out, and everybody else loses money, and somehow he is on top. And he goes up to the Klondike region during the gold rush. He opens up brothels there, whatever, hotels, things like that. He's making all this money, and then he pulls out right as the Mounties show up to bring an end to prostitution, all this kind of, and drinking, this kind of stuff. And again, he has a heads up. He makes all this money. His partner loses out. People are losing out everywhere. It's just bizarre. Like the historians are looking at this and going, how can somebody be this lucky, have this much good luck? It's kind of funny. His name, his actual name was I put there Frederick or Fried. I'm sorry, Fried Rich. It's kind of funny.
Right.
It has the rich in the name. And eventually he apparently died in the 1918 flu pandemic. All right, so let's oh yeah, and I want to say one more thing too, that when he went back to New York, he got married, had Frederick, his first son, and then John, his second son. There was also a daughter, and then he lived a good life there, starting his real estate empire. Which, when he died in 1918, his wife then took over, in which Frederick inherited, and then Donald Trump inherited after that. He apparently died in the 1918 flu pandemic, which was the COVID of 100 years before we experienced it in 2019. Interestingly enough, yeah, it's really interesting that hopefully I won't be taken down for this. Just a side note, I remember when 2020, spring of 2020, when COVID takes off, and none of us had experienced anything like this before. I say this purely for entertainment purposes. I did not wear a mask. I was very anti-mask. And so I start digging into 1918. I start digging into the whole germ virus theory and how that developed. And I couldn't believe seeing all these pictures of people with masks in 1918. And
Yep.
I had never seen these before in my life. At the time, I'm thinking, I mean, maybe I'm just going to play ignorant here and say I was uneducated. I had plenty of grandparents who lived through it. They told me all about their history. It never once came up. I don't know how maybe it was just a bad memory. They talked about World War II. They talked about World War One. They talked about everything. They never talked about this flu pandemic that was apparently all across really the world. And you see people playing baseball wearing the mask, and people at train stations wearing masks, and all out in public. It's like, really, they all rolled out the mask, and it wasn't a first time apparently in 2020. That was a big surprise for me back then. But anyways, apparently he died during that time. So let's talk about Baron Trump. That's not a typo there. So the Baron Trump novels, something else that nobody knew about at all, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, I think it showed up on a Reddit board in around 2017-ish. I could go back and look at when it first appeared, and that's the kind of thing that kind of excites me, because I'm like, what if there's something cyclical that happened? Like, they went back and planted this evidence. Like, it wasn't there when you and I grew up in, say, the 80s and the 90s. And then, if you looked for it, you would never find it. But then all of a sudden, boom, there it is, right? This is kind of what we're talking about, the manipulation to time. So the Baron Trump novels, let me see if I could do this here. Okay. So there's this guy who wrote it, Ingersoll Lockwood. He wrote these children's novels in 1889 and 1893, and this is the plot line. Well, let me see. Okay, he was a lawyer and for a time America's consul to the Kingdom of Hanover, appointed by Abraham Lincoln. And he eventually got around to publishing two children's books. His first, The Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and His Wonderful Dog Bolger, which was released in 1890. And then he had a follow-up, Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey, was its 1893 follow-up. I do confess that I have never read these books myself. I have, looked at the information on them. There was one published 3 years later in 1896, and that one was actually very provocatively titled 1900 or The Last President. So we'll have to see if that one pans out.
Right.
So the Baron Trump novels recount the adventures of the German boy, Wilhelm Henrik Sebastian von Trump, who simply goes by Baron Trump. And supposing, let's see, well, hold on here. Supposing you're already lost to the parallels being proposed, Baron Trump is Donald Trump's only child with First Lady Melania.
Right.
There's other connections as well. Little Baron Trump is described as deriving from a wealthy family that lives on Fifth Avenue in New York City, in what is furthermore referred to as Trump Castle. Of course, we know that right there on Fifth Avenue is Trump Tower in New York City. The plot follows Little Baron and his dog Bolger on a series of Wonderland-like nonsense adventures. In fact, the title there His Marvelous Underground Journey is a straight up reference to Alice in Wonderland. It's pretty much kind of a copy and paste. So if everyone understands what like a nonsense adventure is, those were very, very, very popular in the late 19th century. He goes through other dimensions and time with the help of a mystic character named Don Foom. Don Foom helps Baron and Bolger find the portal to his world within a world that eventually leads to wait for it, Russia. I mean, so here's the thing: like, what child in the 1890s, was on the schoolyard discussing string theory and the multiverse? I mean, this is, if this is true, I mean, it's pretty complex stuff for the 1890s children's literature. So let's see what else here. He has weird underground. There's weird underground civilization. He offends the natives. Trump flees from his entanglements with local women, which was the lead up to 2016, 2017. And well, actually, I think they were still playing that card up into a couple years ago, and repeats this pattern until arriving back home at Castle Trump. Sounds like the Trump administration we've all come to know. So there's a picture of it there, the last president. And interestingly enough, the boy Baron Trump in there looks a lot like Baron Trump. I mean, there's an uncanny resemblance. Some of the stuff in here is just like, it seems like just silly, they purposely designed nonsensical literature, just put it out there just as a clue to let us know that there's something greater going on. Baron Trump did have a dog. I don't know if he's alive or dead at this point. I originally wrote this a few years ago, by the name of Patton, as in 4-star General George S. Patton. And let's see.
No.
Okay. Yes.
Did you ever look up what the word Foom means, like for Don Foom?
I did not.
I found an interesting one. There's a couple of them here, but one of them says it's a grotesque animal figure 6 cubits high, one of 4 presumed to preside over the destinies of China.
Okay.
And then another one means to play upon a fiddle. And another one is a Chinese bird.
All right.
I wonder if there's any significance to that.
I don't know. I'm gonna just jump ahead past that. I mean, I think the point has been made there. I don't need to spend too much time on.
No, that's true. I just wanted to see if there was a connection.
No, that was good. Thank you, Jenna. I'm not saying that about your connection. I'm just saying.
No.
All right. Why did I talk about Pepe the Frog here? There was probably a reason, but okay. Now let's talk about. So when I started kind of updating this paper again, I wrote this several years ago now. And I wanted to dig back into this, and I was seeing this with Ivanka Trump. Now, this is old news for a lot of the QAnon or the Anons out there, but Ivanka Trump, what did I talk here about? I started going off on my whole time travel. I'll say this, if anyone hasn't followed my work before, if you're new to this, and I do have a paper out there called Back to the Bible. I should have brought that up, in which I show actually time travel in Scripture. I also gave a presentation on last fall, which I need to turn into a written paper on Elijah and why I think he is actually St. George and the dragon. People all say St. George is Jesus. No, Jesus is not every historical person, but actually there is a lot of evidence out there that actually not just speculation, but good evidence that St. George is actually Elijah. And Elijah is someone you see pop up a lot throughout history. One of the updates I want to make is how Eliyahu, did I pronounce him right? Eliyahu, in the book of Job, is he seems to have all the traits of Elijah, that he's the prophet that shows up and talks to Job, and he may be Elijah. Elijah has no.
Yochanan was Elijah. Why not?
Yeah, Elijah has no origin story, unless if we were talking about Phinehas, and Phinehas might, who is the descendant of Aaron. That might be his origin story. We really don't know, but I've talked about at the Transfiguration that Yahshua meets with Moses and Elijah there. Now this has been a long time problem for a lot of theologians, because they try to figure this out. Because first of all, if he has conjured the dead from Sheol, if he has pulled them up from Sheol, that is a naughty no-no. That is a transgression of the Torah. That is actually the definition of witchcraft. This is what the witch of Endor did with Samuel when Saul came in, and it appears that she really did bring up Samuel. And we could all kind of have different opinions on whether the witch was surprised by that. She seemed terrified at the fact she did it. It seemed like there was some sort of miracle that happened. Nevertheless, that's transgression. So I understand that he is the God of the living, but they are literally in Sheol this time. They had not been resurrected.
Right.
So that is off the table. Another possibility, people say, well, they were just illusions. It's like, really, like Yahshua just did Project Bluebeam, like he just like, oh, I'm not really talking to living entities. These are just illusions here. These are just whatever, holograms. It's like, no, he's not talking to holograms. And I believe, of course, Elijah and Moses would have been resurrected at his resurrection. That's a whole different topic. In 30 AD, they were came out of Sheol at that time in the harrowing of hell. I have videos on that. All that to say is that I think that is a time travel example in Scripture. There are others where he is the only two guys that went to Mount Sinai that recorded that went and fasted for 40 days and then actually spoke to Yahweh in person. Are these two guys? And this is when Moses comes down and he's just glowing, right? Like they had put a paper bag over his face or whatever, depending on the translation. Yeah, veil. Some people say there was light. Some people argue that there were horns coming out. That could be a Mandela effect thing, whatever. And so each of these two people, and this is exciting. This is why people can't accept this. It's a stumbling block for a lot of people, not because of time travel, but because they can't accept that Yeshua, Jesus, Jesus, however people want to pronounce his name, that he is Yahweh, Yahuwah, the God of the Old Testament. Not that right. Yahweh, as you know, Jenna, that's something I talk about a lot here, that Yahweh is not the Father, he is the Son. He was always the Son.
That's right.
He's on almost every page in the Old Testament. He is instructing the prophets. He's giving the Torah. He's cutting covenants. He's fighting for Yasharel. He is the shepherd of Yasharel. Yahweh. He comes in he is incarnate in human form as Yahshua, and the Father is Allah Hayam.
That's right.
And so literally they are, when he is transfigured and he's speaking to them, he is instructing, he's telling Elijah or Eliyahu, he's like, look, dude, I know you're in dire straits right now, but I'm telling you that I've got plenty of guys who have not been bowed a knee to Baal, right?
7,000 men. Yep.
And he could be taking that, you could take that at Elijah's present time, or he could even be talking about his own disciples. And at the same time, he would be instructing Moses on the Torah, on giving Israel the Torah. Like, it's an incredible example of how he's working outside of time and working, all like time is coming together. And then I've written another one in the same paper where I talk about how I put a lot of work into the Greek LXX timeline and the Masoretic timeline. And again, it's just my opinion that they might be both completely true. So if for anyone out there that doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about, you pick up any Bible, just go find a Bible, and it's probably based on the Hebrew Masoretic, which is a modern Hebrew. It's not that old. And you will read, if you add up the math, you will read that we're right around the year 6,000. This is why so many, end times futurists are like, this is it. We're coming up on the end of the world. You look at the Greek LXX, which was the Bible, which was the major translation. I shouldn't say it was the Bible, but it was the most popular that we have found translation of the first century. Has a very different timeline in which Messiah himself arrived in the year 5,500, not in the year 4,000. So the Masoretic takes out 1,500 years of history. The Greek LXX adds 1,500 years of history, which means we're like living in the year like 7,500 right now rather than 6,000. This is where I've put forward the idea that actually both may be correct. And some people are like, I don't know about this. Other people are like, yeah, like this actually makes sense. that we have seen some sort of, I talked earlier about watching the different streams come into one, that we may be looking back at two kind of parallel timelines that happened that kind of came together. Just throwing that out there. All right. So talking about Ivanka Trump, back in December 2019, she goes to Paris. I'll be going to Paris here very soon. I'll be hopefully reporting from Paris.
Nice.
Maybe we'll do a show like me on top of the Eiffel Tower, and then you'll see like the guy coming behind me, saying, "You got to leave, dude. We closed." I'm like, "No, I'm live right now. Like I'm on YouTube Live." But anyways, so let's see here. Okay, so she does this interesting thing where she's looking out at Paris from this telescope, and a lot of people are looking at the way she's dressed. Let's see if I can find this down here. She's dressed exactly like Nilly Bly, who Nilly Bly was an American journalist who was widely known for her record-breaking trip around the world in 72 days, in emulation of futurist Jules Verne's fictional character Phileas Fogg. And I need to remind everybody again that Verne was a Freemason. Just we're clear on that, so people aren't typing that, like trying to school me on this stuff. And let's see, there was another woman who Elizabeth Bislin Wetmore, who tried to race against the world and beat her, but Nilly Bly won the race around the world. She actually beat Jules Verne's time. And so you get this theme here of this race against time. Interestingly enough, in this picture, if you're looking right here, this was a Q post around the same time, Q post 3647. The context is the Paris Climate Accords, and of course they've been blowing it open and just showing how it was a big scam and that kind of stuff. And Q is one of the ones putting it out there long before most people, I think, were talking about it. And again, I'm just pointing out here that I don't know if Q is the good guy. I am not in the non. I have to say this every time. Nevertheless, this entire narrative really fascinates me, and I can't deny the fact that there is really real intel being pushed around, and that there is some sort of you gave me the finger, the fickle finger of fate. So what was was there a comment you wanted to throw in there?
What's the correlation with Q and the color yellow?
Yes, so that is, do I have a picture here? Maritime, it's a maritime color for Q. Is a yellow flag. And so you see that a lot. I'll get ahead of myself. I'm gonna get ahead of myself. We saw that just recently with JD when he went and visited the Pope, the Grim Reaper, and then the Pope dies that night. He's wearing a yellow tie. We see this a lot at very strategic moments, and I believe it. I believe that this is intel. So back in say the Revolutionary War days, and we're just going official history here. Let's just assume 1776 happened as they tell us. They had spy networks where they would put out the laundry a certain way, and you would be able to go out there and read. Oh, look, there's double socks upside down, and this means you don't even need to talk to the person. You just know that they're passing you a message, and they're going along the spy network that way. It's the same thing in the media today, where a lot of the truthers out there, I think we have to kind of unlearn what we've learned, because we're like, oh, they're lying to us. Like, yeah, duh, of course they're lying to us, but they have to. Like they're sending out coded messages. Nothing is as it meets the eye. So you have this idea of the spy versus spy in the media, where the white hats are saying one thing. Again, whether they're good or bad, I don't know. But the white hats are saying one thing. The dark hats, I guess, are saying another message. Excuse me here, I have a runny nose. But they're trying to manipulate each other. They're trying to throw out propaganda against each other, and they can't obviously always say what they mean. And so a lot of this stuff, we can't take it at surface value. I think a lot of us have been taught to do that,
right?
And realize that with like Epstein, like that's been the big thing recently. That they're sending out a lot of different messages about Epstein, and they can't come out and just say it yet. Stuff like that. So, because if they did, they would in any kind of investigation. If it is true that they're going to do these mass arrests, you have to try to keep it as low key as possible, even though there's a lot of us out there demanding to see, the client list and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just, throwing that out there, and people again can come up with their own opinion about what should be done on that. But I get it. Like in an investigation, You need to make sure that everyone is in the right place to do the arrest at the right time, to have all the evidence in place before you make it public. And think about all the different options. All right, so she goes on with she goes through Paris with anyways. Oh yeah, this Q post here 3647. What's crazy about this is that there was somebody in that picture standing behind the camera right there at the Eiffel Tower that was basically like, look, I took this picture. I was in Paris. I might have been at the Paris Climate Accords. You don't know who I am, and I'm watching you, right? And so you get the same message here with Ivanka Trump. You see this here with some people could say that the shattered mirrors here could be MK Ultra, but it could be Project Looking Glass as well. And anyways, there's connections here going back to Jules Verne and this race against time. You can even see here that when she's standing purposely in front of this clock tower here, she is actually wearing the same clothes as when she pulls back her in this kid's picture book and others, and when she pulls back her coat, she's wearing the same. It just seems like she's wearing this 1800s clothing. It was very purposeful. She's sending messages there that they have, according to the theory of Trump time travel, that they have not only manipulated time, they are ahead of time and they're beating their opponents. They're winning. All right, let's move on. So just the other day, I was in front of Buckingham Palace. We were walking through London. It was a nice little walk. We went through Hyde Park into Kensington Gardens, and Buckingham Palace is kind of it's meaningful to me because it would have been August 31st, I believe it was 1997, that I was standing in front of Buckingham Palace. I was 16 years old. I had just spent a summer, like 3 months, camping in the Rift Valley of Kenya, living with the Maasai tribe. And that's when I got word, standing in front of Buckingham Palace, I got word that Princess Diana was killed. Now, she probably wasn't killed. That's a side point. And London, England loved her. Like, she was on the side of buses, on shopping bags, everywhere. This was a huge event. I go home, I fly home, I watch her funeral. That would have been on September 6th. That was a Saturday. And then the next Monday morning, I meet my wife, or the woman that would be my wife. I was 16, she was 15. And so I connect to this day, the death of Princess Diana, to meeting my wife. Like, it was just what everyone was talking about. It was right there. And so it was kind of, special to go back there with my wife and stand in front of Buckingham. And now we have 3 children together, like 30 something years later, or whatever, 30 years later, whatever it is. We're walking along and I passed the Diana Princess of Wales Memorial Fountain. Now, we were there too early in the morning. You can see the shadows there. They hadn't opened it up yet. It was a big gate, but I'm looking at this and I said to my wife, I said, Sarah, I think that's a queue. I think that is a queue out there. And lo and behold, I went and looked up in the internet, and apparently I'm way behind on this. I guess people have been talking about this for the last 10 years or whatever, but that is undeniably a big queue. It's just weird. Like, so this is like water, kind of like living water here, but they have, they cut a path there, a big old queue, seemingly tying, her fake death with, I think everybody probably agrees that at least JFK Jr. Did not die. That was the biggest hoax ever. If you want to take someone out, have a plane crash. But when you get into like the David Icke reptilian conspiracies, she was taken out as a blood sacrifice for the reptilians. But when you get into Anon circles, they're like, no, hold up. She actually was a hoax. And that this is how Intel was taking her off, taking her away from the bad guys. I don't really know. I wasn't there. So you had mentioned the color yellow. You can see there, JD, his tie is the color yellow, the Q color. He's meeting with the Pope, the Grim Reaper. Everybody knows the story now. And he died that night. Now, here's some of the interesting things. Let's see if I can pull this up. There's a picture of George Mario Bergoglio, as Francis was known, giving the classic John Wilkes Booth sign there, the Masonic sign, which is interesting. Best of both worlds. He's a Jesuit and a Freemason. And let's see what why did I look at the number 111 there? You know what? It's getting too late. I'm not going to go into the gematria, but I went into the gematria there about the timing of his death. It does tie up, interestingly enough, with on the same day we see Klaus Martin Schwab, and let's see what he stepped down from. He resigned from the World Economic Forum, which was kind of interesting. There seemed to be a connection there, particularly since we get into this guy. This guy here, the picture of the guy on the right, excommunicated Archbishop Vigano. And he was one of those speaking out about Francis. And this is an actual quote that he said in a video interview. If you guys read the paper, which is linked under this video, by the way, you can follow along. You can nab a video clip there of him spilling the beans. And I basically listened to it and I wrote it all out. This is what he said. Hopefully there's no typos in this. He said, the fourth revolution theorized by Klaus Schwab and the family of international financiers in Bergoglio. So here, this guy who is obviously, I mean, it was pretty evident why he was excommunicated from the Catholic Church. He said something he wasn't supposed to hear. And he basically said that the World Economic Forum, specifically under Schwab, is teaming up with Francis, but that's not it. Not a neutral spectator, which would itself already be an unheard of thing, but actually a zealous cooperator, meaning Francis and Schwab together, who abuses his own moral authority ab extra outside the church. The project of the dissolution of traditional society while ab intra within the church. So he's basically saying with ab extra and ab intra that Francis is working with these financiers with the World Economic Forum to destroy not society outside of the church, society as a whole, but also destroy the church from within. In the project of dissolution of traditional society while ab intra within the church, he pursues the project of the demolition of the church in order to replace her with a philanthropic organization of Masonic inspiration. And it is scandalous. This applies to both to civil and ecclesiastical world, confirming the criminal conspiracy between the deep state and the deep church. Now, for a lot of people listening, it's like, tell me something I don't know. We're dealing with the Roman Catholic Church here. It seems to me, I thought this was really interesting. It seems to me that in this conspiracy, the role of the Jesuit has been decisive. It is no coincidence that for the first time in history, a religious of the Society of Jesus is seated on the throne of Peter. When you and I start going through my European research, because I am doing boots on the ground research here, just running into dozens and dozens of cathedrals and photographing, documenting everything. I have to say, I'm really taken back with how much Jesuit influence I'm finding everywhere. Like it's incredible, like how much of a hand they have in these cathedrals in the Roman Catholic Church everywhere. And so when a guy like this, Vigano, is saying that the Jesuits were put here, instituted in the 500s, I'm sorry, the 1500s. And over the last 500 years, there has been this, they have been kind of biding their time. It almost sounds like the plot line to the Star Wars prequel trilogy. They've been biding their time. And then they're now making that the board is set and they're making their move with Pope Francis. This has to really deeply resonate. I could see why this guy, like, nobody would talk to this guy again, because that would resonate with every priest out there who's going into their church and seeing the Jesuit influence everywhere and having to deal with the fact that they have been played by the Sith Lord. Like, like the Sith comes out, and says, okay, here I am now, and I'm making my move. So he dies, and this is what Trump says on social media. This is on Truth Social, and this is one of the things where, again, when I said earlier that we have to kind of take everything that they're saying, and it's not at face value. There's encoded messages and all this. And he says, rest in peace, Pope Francis. May God bless him and all who love him. Now, unfortunately, I make this so small, I can't even read this. Oh my goodness. But this ties in. This ties in with the Q post way back on 4/3/18. Q Post 997, which says that the Pope would be having a terrible May, adding those who backed him will be pushed into the light. So that's interesting. He died in May. It was his terrible May, as promised by QAnon, or by Q, excuse me. I got to get my verbiage right. And Trump seems to be pointing out to this fulfillment of what they said would happen back in 2018. Now, this ties into my Back to the Future paper. There was an interesting scene where when Marty goes to the year 2015. Now, 2015, even though Trump ran for president in 2016, he actually it was actually, I think, 2015 where he started. It was kind of representative of his rise to power. So Marty goes to 2015, and it's when he's there talking to the Save the Clock Tower guy that he says to him, he says, what exact quote? He's like, wouldn't it be great to go back to the beginning of the season and put some money on the Cubbies? And Marty's like, wait, what? And if he gets this idea, he could get this almanac and sports almanac and go back and place bets. And the great thing about this almanac is that because it was printed in the future, even though you're placing bets on things and then the outcome of the other bets would change, the almanac would constantly change to be in accord with the future. A lot of people miss that plot point. And so we read with this new Pope, this American Pope, that he's from Chicago. He stems from the Windy City. And that you see here, ABC News is reporting that he was a Chicago Cubs fan. And I couldn't help but see that that kind of similarity there, that this may be, again, I'm not saying the Pope is a good guy, right? But I do believe that there are agents in place and that there are things happening. There are people wearing masks. Maybe he's an actor from Hollywood, who really knows, but there are people in place. They're all playing roles. And it's a spy versus spy game. And is this Pope kind of symbolic of that moment where the elite are saying, don't you wish you could go back in time and put some money on the Cubbies, right? On the right winning team, because they chose the wrong team. Everything, this whole regime change is happening. So just throwing that out there, maybe this 5 minutes of this video will not age well, and maybe he will turn out to be more tyrannical and evil than anyone before him. Most likely, by all indications, he's a puppet Pope. I mean, by all indications. I mean, the fact that they would put in an American Pope now with the present political atmosphere. I'll give you a quick story. I love Europe very much. I want to be a good guest here in Europe, just as I want to be a good host in America when they come. And we're staying in people's homes. I'm in somebody's home right now. Right now, those people are staying in our home in Charleston. That's how we travel for free. We swap homes. And we get to travel the world for free by doing that. It takes a lot of work to find the homes to swap. But just today, I was at Glastonbury, walking along. This 92-year-old man comes along, and he just walks up to me, and he says, he said, "You must be American." And I said, "Did you hear me talk? Was it my accent?" He's like, "No. You have a worried look on your face." And I know that worried look on your face is because you're so worried about what Trump is going to do to the world. So I've noticed that here in Britain, Trump is it's a dirty word. It's kind of like just saying Trump is like a political statement of how wrong, we are in this askewed timeline. I see very few, at least the voice first ones out here. And I have learned, I want to be a good guest here in Britain. But I basically learned that whatever energy they push on me, I'm just going to push it right back. And so I burned it. And he's a 92-year-old guy, a very sweet guy, but I burned him good. And he laughed at it. I thought he might be insulted, but I was like, speaking of worry, are you worried about your government getting you involved in a war with Russia? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, that's what I'm worried about, that we're going to have to come over here and save your butt for the third time. And he was just like burn, like you saw it like on his face, like he's like, good one. Like, now I know that they're probably here in England. It's probably like the most tiresome thing. They're probably sick and tired of Americans coming over here and reminding them, but it's the truth. All right. So, anyways, all that to be said. One more story that has nothing to do with time travel. As you know, I mispronounce words all the time. I can never pronounce words right. People make fun of me for it, no matter how hard I try. It's just my lot in life. At the Tower of Babel, I was given the California tongue, and I couldn't do Southern, I couldn't do Texas, I couldn't do New Jersey, I couldn't do British. But my my daughter Rivka, she's 2 years old, and we've started noticing that her accent is changing. And maybe it's because she's watching like Peppa Pig or whatever, but she's like, Daddy, like that. She's like, she's got this British accent. She's like,
Daddy.
Daddy. Yeah, and we find it funny every single time. So all right, where was I? We're talking about whatever. There's your Back to the Future connection right there. All right. I want to talk with we're kind of coming up on the last 30 minutes here, so we're not going to get to Tomorrowland tonight. I'm sorry to say. What else did I want to cover here? Oh, the shot heard around the world. I did want to cover a little bit, an update on that. Not going to go through Back to the Future, but let's talk about Trump and Freemasonry. And I want to be fair to both sides here. I'm not trying to. What I don't want to do when I cover these, I want to be well-rounded. I want to be as everybody's biased. I'm a biased person. There are outcomes that I would like to see happen.
Right.
And you know, I'm hoping for the best. I'm very optimistic for the future, and I like a lot of things that are happening. I like the fact that our government is being minimized, and you know, all these, we can go through all of this. And I like the fact that one of the biggest threats to our society is like woke culture. I'll say feminism as well, things like that. Which the ultimate end of it, you know, as I like to say, men actually won the war on feminism. We just put men into women's sports and called it a day. But I'm glad that I say that, but it's really evil. And it's not, I'm glad we're defeating this stuff. Right. That being said, Trump and the Freemasons. So when you look at you're looking at the constitutions of Freemasonry, of the Freemasons here. This comes from their 1723 book. And if you look there, you can see, of course, a whole line of pillars. They did the double pillars overboard. By the way, I do think that the two pillars are legitimate. Historically, I think that the Freemasons did inherit them. I do well, yeah. And I think that they made it their own. I don't think that it was that big of a deal beforehand, before the Freemason inheritors took it. But up there you see Apollo riding in the clouds. So when you get down here to Trump's apartment, you see here, you see like he does the same thing with this book. You see like the line of pillars. I try to find the right angles, but it's undeniably capturing this with, you have Apollo up there on the ceiling. Moving on, in his here in his office, and this is also in New York City, Trump's desk is inspired by Louis the 14th, the Sun King. Now I've personally seen Louis the 14th's stuff, Palace of Versailles. I've been there. This guy was like, he was an Apollo worshiper. Louis the 14th worshipped Apollo. And even the Apollo 13 mission with NASA, they actually mimicked Louis the 14th's own stuff of his worship of Apollo. So there was a connection there. So there's undeniable that Trump appears to be associating himself with Apollo. People like YouTubers, like people write comments, you know, like, no, don't you know? I'm like, yes, I know this. All right. So I'm just putting this here now so everybody sees it. I'm well aware of this. And like I said, there are multiple ways to look at the same issue. I mean, it's not just an either or. There could be multiple scenarios going on. I'll cover a few of them. We see the checkerboard pattern here in his, where is this? That's in his, the lobby. Oh, the painting back there is Pierre Auguste Renoir. Yeah, his Le Lodge, excuse me, Le Lodge. He was, of course, a Masonic painter. He did a lot of Freemason paintings. He just so happened to be 33 when he did that. And of course, it means the lodge in French, if you guys can't guess that. So it seems to be that he's mimicking here in his apartment this Masonic lodge. Not only that, he did go to a Jesuit university in New York City. He did not graduate from that university. I think he did give 2 years there. That's important to note. a few other people who went to not to this university, but were educated by Jesuits was Bill Clinton, Tim Russert, Pope Francis, obviously, John Kerry, Tim Kaine, and and Tom Kaine was attached to the Hillary Clinton presidency. So this here, I mean, now I've talked also because when you get into this scenario of QAnon, you have these truthers out there. They're like, it's the white versus the black hand, the left versus right magic, right? Duality. Like, don't you get it, Noel? I'm like, yeah, I get it. That's actually really profound what you just said. And I usually find that the people who say this, I don't want to sound rude, but the people who usually say this are people who are trying to sound smart, and they actually have nothing to offer the conversation, because I try to talk to them. And usually when that comes up, it's basically said, I dismiss this. They have nothing to say. So I've proven this. And it's like, okay, you just said a very profound thing. Can we talk about the left and right kind of magic? That's super profound. And I've identified other parts in history where we see the same thing with Nero. You can see here that the beast were the seven, actually the eight, the heads of Leviathan. And when Nero was the head that was crushed and basically brought to death, though he was probably, the first century truthers were all saying that it was a hoax. They were calling hoax back then. And that continued for hundreds of years to the point that there is a whole thing on Nero Redivivus, which claimed that Nero would return embodied by Satan, and he might have. That was prophesied in the sibling oracles that Nero would return as the Antichrist in the 500s. So maybe he really did. Anyways,
question.
Go ahead.
These first century people thought that what was a hoax? Nero?
Nero's death.
Oh,
Yeah, there were reports of seeing him, at the coffee shop, like, hey, it's like, hey, that's Nero, that kind of thing. The same kind of thing with like, the captain of the Titanic, after, the Titanic never went down. I don't buy that they switched ships. Like there was no sinking of the Titanic, and there were reports of seeing the captain afterwards, and they would say, hey, Captain, whatever his name was, and he would just wave back and smile at them. Same thing with Nero. Anyway, so when it was the same thing that you see the left and right hand. So Nero was like this kind of, if he was like the dark hand, the left hand of magic, then when the Flavians came in, it looked like Rome came to an end, but the Flavians came in, they were a new dynasty, and they were like the dynasty of light, right? But they actually did greater destruction. They were the one that went in and destroyed, as bad as it was with Nero, they were the ones that went and destroyed Jerusalem and the temple and created the diaspora there. So you see other examples like this in history of these the left and right hand. And of course, the example that's given is with the Wizard of Oz, where when Dorothy, the house falls and the Wicked Witch of the East, the Wicked Witch of the West shows up, said, you killed my sister. And then the Glinda from the South, she's at war with the Wicked Witch of the West. Everybody knows that story. Now, what people miss with the Wizard of Oz is that in the original L. Frank Baum novel, and I actually went back last year and I read like the first 5 of them. Each one started getting worse and worse. And I can't take this anymore. I just stopped reading them. But the first one was there were some good ones in there, but what everyone forgets is that in the original book, not the MGM movie, L. Frank Baum put it out there that there was no Emerald City. It was all a hoax. So what happened is when Dorothy and her friends are coming close to the Emerald City, it's beyond the horizon. They still can't see it. They come up to a guard gate. There's a big wall surrounding it and a guard gate. And the guard says, if you want to go to the Emerald City, you got to put on these emerald glasses. And Dorothy's like, why? And he's like, well, if you don't, it was something like either you're gonna be blinded or you're gonna die. He put this fear into her, and he went and he locked it to ensure that she, not even Toto, nobody else could take off these glasses. It was locked on. And the big reveal at the end is that the only reason it was all an illusion, there was no Emerald City, it was because they were looking at through the emerald glasses that it was,
right.
It was city. The point here is that the Wicked Witch of the West knew this, and the Wicked Witch of the South knew this. They were all in on it together. Even though they were truly warring factions, they wanted to take each other out. There were some things that they were still mutually binded to this deception. So something to think about too with Trump. Even if he is, there are things that he might be legally bound to, just like Hillary, like the Clintons, everybody else. They're all like, the shape of the earth, things like that, the Antarctica Treaty, things that they can't give away, but they can still be trying to war with each other and take each other out, just like, the mob or anybody else. This is something I reported on back in like 2016, Marina Abramovic. And she talked about how when she went to these shamans and went through this whole ridiculous ceremony that she's always going through, she said that that she talked about how Trump was being selected because he was a magician. And the point of him being selected as a magician is to wake everybody up. Basically take the baseball bat out to the hornet's nest. And, amazingly, just to be clear, just because she said this doesn't mean that they're all in on it together. Okay, let's just be clear. This is coming from Marina Abramovic. I don't need to believe anything she says. However, that being said, before I put my foot in my mouth, it's astonishingly true. Back in 2019, it was hard to find anybody that was like woken up. Over the last year, 2 years, I can't believe just going and speaking to just old Republican conservatives, how much like knowledge they have about chemtrailing and, Epstein didn't, kill himself, like these kind of things, right? Like they just like the world has woken up. The world has woken up and you can't put them back to bed. And according to her, she said this was all according to the plan. That the elite actually wanted to wake us up. For what end? We can all discuss that. This is actually, unfortunately, an intel project, an intel tactic. MI6 talked about this years ago, that they would disseminate truth amongst the conspiracy crowd. And they would use us as pawns to spread their information. I actually believe this with the flat earth, by the way. I do think it was a psyop. I am a flat earthist. I will be for hopefully forever. Hopefully, I shouldn't even say probably, because it's biblical. I believe it to be true, but I do think that it was probably pushed out by intel. And by the way, not all intel is bad. There's good intel as well. We see. I don't need to go into this here. Well, you see that the world in 2017, The Economist, they were making Trump out to be the showing all these different Trump cards. Get it? And it's interesting that the fool card there, the fool is the trickster. He's identified with Mercury, alchemy. He's always one at the crossroads because it's the job of the fool to expand borders. One of the great examples I like to use is the trickster and Lucille Ball. I wrote a paper on that and how she was one of the ultimate tricksters of American mythos. And that if you look at like the 1950s, what Lucille Ball was doing is she was making, she was paving the way for feminism by making the role of a woman look stupid and making it funny that she would rebel against her husband constantly and go out and try to live this life of stardom when he just wanted a wife that was going to take care of him, right? And so she was the ultimate trickster, in that she changed the mindset of Americans. She expanded the boundaries, and this is, of course, is what you could say Trump is doing.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why would the intel want to put out truth if they're trying to keep people deceived?
Well, yeah, there could be that's a good question. What I do know is I don't have the book in front of me because obviously, as you can see, I'm in Exeter, England. I said I wouldn't give that away, but yeah, the mystery is out there. I'm the one in England. I don't have my bookshelf, but there's a phenomenal book by, was it Michael Hoffman, I think it is, on he wrote the textbook on 9/11 and psychodrama, and showing how psychodrama changes humanity. He's a great example of the JFK assassination and how quickly everything changes, including the fashion industry and everything. But he put out there the report from the intel community. I think that specifically it was MI6 in that case, where they admitted to doing this. And they're basically controlling the narrative from all ends. So what truthers, I think, often mistake is that if it is true, it is not put out by them, that, they're breaking through. It's like, no, I'm sorry. It's actually controlled from all ends. And I don't know. I can't answer that exactly why they do it all the time, but it could just be because they want total control of the narrative. Give you a great example of this. This is what we talk about, like controlled opposition, right? So I've given this example a few times before. There was a family, because we travel constantly and we go down to a beach in Florida in our camper, and we spend 3 months a year down in the camper on the beach. And there was a family we met down there, most, in the world, non-woken, never red pilled family. We were very friendly with them. We sat around the fire with them. I kept my mouth shut, as I often do. And we got along really well, became friends. And as they're driving off in their car, they look me up online, and the wife is like, "Oh my God, like this guy is a freak show. Do you see what this, Hitler, flat earth, things like that, Auschwitz, And so he told me, he confessed to me that he was angry with me for at least a couple of years. He was so angry with me. And eventually he told his sons, they started obsessively like listening to my podcasts, and they just wanted to prove me wrong. And they're like, okay, he went and told his sons, he said, okay, we're going to prove this Noel guy wrong. Let's go prove that the earth is a globe. He went out there, did a water test, surface of the water, with his sons. It did not go the way he wanted. And he was
I
just
didn't think so. Right.
he was like, oh crap. And now he is one of the biggest flat earth advocates out there. Not only that, he's just, it's just like eat, sleep, poop, truth, right? Like he's just, he and I just have these conversations now that is just wild, right? That's the way it
Right.
happens. Right? He woke up. But the problem is that he and his wife, they grew up Catholic. And hopefully if he's listening to this now, I love you guys. But I've talked about this in person, so this is not like a curveball for him. And I've implored him. I'm like, okay, you guys grew up Catholic, and he's like, the one thing he can't get past is like, Noel, how can you believe the Bible is true? It's like, look at you, who's running the world. You see the Pope, and of course, the Pope is probably just a storefront mannequin, but you see this, and how can you believe this dribble when they're using this to manipulate us? And Rome using the Pope of Rome going up there and holding the Bible to his bosom is the perfect example of controlled opposition, right? Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer, right? And they want to control, manipulate everything. So as they're putting out this intel, they're doing it for manipulation purposes. And we're actually seeing that narrative. We've seen that some developments rather recently with the flat earth, where we have seen what appears to be a long-standing plan to try to destroy the flat earth. I don't think they're going to win though. Okay, so let's move on. Hold on. I lost my mouse situation here. I need to fix this. All right. We're coming up on the end here. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, they call each other wizards. It's actually America's favorite nerd, Bill Gates. He actually would say that he referred to himself as a minor wizard. Hopefully they're not. And Steve Jobs was more of a major wizard. Hopefully they're not comparing sizes. But they would apparently. He said, Bill Gates said he would cast spells. And that I've seen other places, where people would say like Michael Jackson was a master wizard, these kind of things, casting spells. But anyways, so this is how I kind of want to end it here. This is, is Trump a Freemason? Is he a Jesuit? Is he in on it? Some of the other people in history that were apparently Freemasons, is it all as meets the eye? And I have come to learn that there's much more going on than the surface stuff that we think we're so clever at, and we don't always know. So these are the four things, and maybe you guys out there can help me kind of draft up better ways to phrase this, but this is what I came up with. Kind of, you've all heard of C.S. Lewis's liar, the 3 L's: liar, lunatic, or Lord. This is not that. This is something different. So number one, he's one of them. Trump, he's an actor creating order out of chaos. All right. So we see that, right? We saw that with COVID, there was order out of chaos, but we see that now there is chaos happening, to create order out of that. Okay. That's option one. Number two, he's one of them. and is quite literally warring with a certain faction, not quite unlike the American Civil War or the left and right hand approach of magic, which I just talked about. So that's the other option. So the first is that he's an actor. They're all actors. The chimpanzee is writing the script in the back room, and then Nancy Pelosi gets the script, and this week my husband gets beat in the head with a hammer, and we're all laughing about it in the back room, right? That's one way that people see the world. That is a possibility. They're all in on it. They're laughing their ass off in the back. Obama and Trump and Clinton's are all best friends, that kind of stuff. The second one is that he is like the white wizard that is going up against the reptilians, right? They're quite literally warring against each other. Here's option number 3. He was one of them until he wasn't. He broke away and went rogue. That is one possibility. That he broke his whatever contracts he had, whatever. And to be fair, I do think we are seeing some situations happening like that with maybe Steve Jobs, Zuckerberg, others who were like totally creep shows a while ago. And some of the questions we've been asking in our chats, our roundtable chats, are did these contracts come to an end, and are they able now to make decisions for the new regime change? The fourth one is this: that Trump infiltrated Freemasonry, and he was a mole, meaning he was never a true Freemason, but he entered the den of iniquity, so to speak. That includes Playboy Mansion, all of with the whole MK Ultra scene, all that. I guess I should put up the picture of him on Playboy. And in this way, he was never one of them. He only pretended to play along before making his eventual move. And we know that it was in, I think, 2016 at the dinner with Hillary Clinton, when he kind of outed himself. And you see that's up until that point, like everyone was pro-Trump, everyone in the media, and all of a sudden they all changed. They got the memo. We're against this guy now. And so those are the 4 kind of different conspiratorial views that I've come up with. So according to the Trump time traveling kind of narrative, he would have been a mole. Like everything in there's no there's no record of him being a Freemason. The Freemasons say that he's not one of them. They're defiant against it, and that he basically he infiltrated the Jesuits, the Freemasons, everyone. He infiltrated the elite to finally make his move and take them out. So those are the 4 options I'm playing with. If somebody can think up a different option or a better way to word it, send me an email or whatever. I think that's all I have to say tonight. Jenna, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Always. So,
Sure.
If he was really a Freemason, would they say that he was anyway, or would they just say, no, he's not part of this, just so that this way they can
Right.
hide things? You know what I'm saying? Like, who do you trust and who do you believe?
Well, that would go back to option number 1, or option number 2, or something like that. That they're lying about his associations, but they're all in on it together, right? So
Right.
that is definitely one of the options. Yeah.
Right. All right. My phone almost fell. All right.
So we didn't get to Tomorrowland. I want to do a thing on that. I'm thinking next week we're going to, when we get together again, we're going to kind of do more variety because we want to talk about Acts 29.
Yes.
I want to talk about like different, sections of kind of like rare scripture, things like that. We'll do that. I'll be talking about my discoveries in Europe, and I have already thousands of pictures. I'm spending time just trying to, organize all of this into the different categories. All the things I'm finding, just stuff blowing my things that, like, I'll say this next week when we come on, that there are things that the internet people still don't know about. Like there are things that I've been researching for years on, and I can't find it anywhere on the internet. And then I go into these cathedrals, I go into these castles, I go in these places, and I'm seeing stuff. I'm like, OMG, nobody ever told me about any of this stuff before. And so I feel like I'm learning at this accelerated rate. And I'm excited to be here to do this boots on the ground research. We'll be talking about that, and we could always cover Tomorrowland too, because I really want to go over that. And that's it for tonight. For those of you that are still, hopefully my internet was good tonight. I think it went well.
You froze a couple of times.
Did I? Yeah, I'm seeing that the bars are really low right now.
Yeah.
But how long was I freezing? Was it like a long time?
Yeah, like minutes at a time. I mean, your voice was still coming through. It's just your picture was frozen.
What did I have a face like really weird face or anything like that?
Well, once or twice.
Oh, okay, once or twice. So what was I going to say? Oh yeah. Just a reminder to everyone out there that we are here. I'm not just a YouTube channel. We're the Unexpected Cosmology is way more than that. And one of the things we're trying to do is to work to translate the entire Bible through the Paleo. Now, to clarify, because a lot of people listen, they're confused by this. They're like, no, there's already translations out there where they use the Paleo names. That's not what we're doing. We're not just, saying Yahweh instead of Yahweh or something like that.
Right.
We're using a translation process to, take the Bible with the Paleo and then use the English through that. And this is a big, big, big process. And we know that it works because we know that it works because in Genesis 3, the cat in the hat doesn't show up. Okay. So we know that, like, when we take the Hebrew Masoretic and we line up the Paleo with it, that it's a beautiful process. We need your guys' support. We need ministry supporters to do this. I'm taking care of Rebecca every month. We're providing for her full time to live. Of course, she's very sick right now. Y'all be with her, and we're praying for her. She's been sick for months, guys, so please pray for her. And of course, Pamela as well. We're trying to provide for her needs fully as well. Some months we are able to fully provide for her needs. Other months we're not bringing in the funds. And of course, I'm providing for my family through this ministry as well. So if Yah leads you guys, we need, of course, prayer supporters. And Jenna, you lead up that charge. You on our Discord channel, you have the prayer meetings.
Yep.
Every single Wednesday nights. Thank you for heading that up.
My pleasure.
We need prayer supporters, but we also need, we're asking for financial supporters as well. So please, everybody, consider that. I love conspiracy theories. I love talking about this stuff. But for me, the ultimate truth is the scripture and the Torah itself, the instructions in righteous living. That is the ultimate conspiracy. That Psalm 2, that the kings of the earth conspire against Yahweh. So there you have it. All right, Jenna, thank you for being here with me. And next time I freeze up, just like, let me know, and I'll so just I'm glad I wasn't choppy, but
I sent you a message in the chat over here.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not always reading all those because I'm so busy.
Gotcha.
But anyway, just hold up your finger next time, and I'll try to be like, just keep doing that, and like I'll eventually catch it. As I go across Europe, I'm dependent on all these different Wi-Fi signals in each of these houses that we're staying in. So, and I'm way up here in the attic, so it's probably a little weaker up here. But anyways, good night, everybody. We'll do this again tomorrow night. I'm continuing my Matthew study, the Paleo Matthew.
Excellent.
And we'll be doing this again next week, Jenna. So, good night, everybody.
Shalom.
If you had the power to go back in time and choose to give into a ministry that would effectively change the way the world sees an idea, would you do it? I think the answer is yes. Well, you don't have to go back in time. What you can do is right now, you can click the link below and give to the Paleo Hebrew translation effort. What is this? Well, Paleo Hebrew is the ancient form of Hebrew. When you write Hebrew out, you build it. If I said H2O, you know that I mean water. That's what building a language is. Japanese, Chinese, Korean, they all have this idea, even Paleo Babylonian, the Paleo Egyptian, the hieroglyphics, petroglyphs. They have this idea that when you put a certain group of pictures together, it means a word. That's what Paleo Hebrew was. That's what Paleo Hebrew is. Pamela Glasgow is changing the way that we view the scriptures. You can help. You can go ahead and click the link below and find out how you can change your life, your study of the Bible, your children's life, your children's children, and everybody the whole world, man. The whole world can benefit greatly from this. And you can have the power to help right now. All you got to do is click it and give. And it's good to give. What does the Bible say? James says, what is good religion? That I defile not myself with the world, then I give to the widows and the orphans. Well, we're working on number 1. Sorry, number 2. Well, both, actually. We're working on not defiling ourselves, so hopefully you're working on that too. I'm working on that. But we can give to the widows. And the widows, she's right there. And she's doing a work for you, for us, for the whole world. And we have the power to effectively change the paradigm of how we've seen the scriptures from time immemorial to tomorrow. So do that. All right, be blessed and not stressed.